But can Facebook fix its own worst bug? Joining us now, the man who wrote the article there, Farhad Manjoo, and Naveed Jamali, former FBI double agent and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. This is going to be a good conversation. Farhad, you've been covering the markets there, if you will, in technology land for about 17 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I have.
All right, so year 17 is magic for you. You come out with this article and you're looking at fake news and Facebook and what it is doing to stop the, if you will, proliferation of it. What are they doing?
They've sort of done a number of things. They're trying to kind of slowly and methodically tackle this problem. The question is sort of whether they can tackle it enough that it doesn't sort of change the nature of the company. I mean, the problem they face is that in order to kind of really police this, they would have to insert themselves into the middle of partisan debates, and it's unclear if they want to.
Are they using artificial intelligence? Do they have a team of 1,000 little hands here working away to find all the bad stuff? How are they doing this?
They're using AI, which is sort of how newsfeed runs. They're using computers and metrics, but it's also kind of fed by this survey panel. One of the things they're doing so far is they're flagging fake news that has been sort of found by fact-checking organizations like Snopes, for example. And then the other thing they're doing is they published a news literacy sort of guidelines for readers. And they're trying to reduce the appearance of certain kinds of publications in the feed, like publications that they flag as being sort of purveyors of misinformation will be, reduced in the likelihood that you'll see it in your feed will be lower. So they've been trying to do a bunch of things.
20%, 30% lower? Do you know?
I mean, the thing about Facebook is it's hyper-personalized. So, everyone's feed is going to be different. So it's hard to say, and they won't give you the metrics of like how much they're going to, reduce this this publication versus that. Everyone's feed is different, and it's based on, what you do. So,
Naveed, get in on this here in the spook space where you're from. Did you have technology that you're already using? Because obviously you are in the space of getting intelligence and information and determining whether it is right or whether it is wrong.
Well, first of all, Farhad's article is fascinating, and to kind of pivot exactly to that point, Richard, the idea of intelligence analysis is very much what I think Facebook and Twitter and other social media platforms have to move towards. I mean, when we think of the intelligence space, it's an upside-down pyramid. You have a tremendous amount of data that's flowing down to a very small number of analysts. If you think of the New York Police Department, for example, people might be surprised to know that there's only about 40 or 50 analysts that are actually working there. So, at the end of the day, when you have something that is going to require a human decision, an editorial review as to whether something is, quote-unquote fake news, someone is going to have to make that decision. Now, there's technology that can sit in between that. So, for example, if a fake news site is reported as being CNN or MSNBC, one can assume those are legitimate journalistic outlets where you're not going to review that. But if there's something like a WordPress site or something where the domain is not recognized, look, a human is going to actually have to look at the content and decide if it violates the terms of service and actually falls into that category.
A lot of folks will say here, Farhad, this is Facebook. It's not an issue of whether they can do it. I mean, because there's like 13 zettabytes of information that gets passed along between people. I may be off by a zettabyte or two, right? But the issue here is, why don't they do it? There are a lot of big brains that run around at Facebook.
No, it's not exactly a technical problem. It's a philosophical problem. It's like if they become the arbiters of kind of what gets shared and what is allowed to be disseminated in every country, they instantly become a different kind of company. They become, in the dark view of it, they become something like the Ministry of Truth in every country. In the kind of positive view of it, they become something like the New York Times. Like they become the news agency that's setting the agenda for the country. And I think they do not want to be that. I mean, I think that's the difficulty. It's a philosophical, it's a view of what Facebook should be, and they think it should be a technology company rather than, a media company, a news company.
I want you to listen to what Chief of Staff Reince Priebus had to say this morning.
Is that something he wants to pursue?
I think it's something that we've looked at, and how that gets executed or whether that goes anywhere is a different story.
So this is about pursuing fake news by the White House and the Trump administration and potentially considering libel laws and how they can change them to go after those who they believe might have conflicted with these new definitions of what libel might be. Do you see the Trump administration here, Naveed, really taking this step, and how might they do that?
Well, I think it is a crazy path for the Trump administration to go down. I mean, look, there is a reality, Richard, which is what we have now is essentially state-sponsored trolls. I mean, we saw 2016, we saw Russia involved using social media platforms in a large part. That doesn't mean that real journalism should be attacked. And I think part of the problem that we're having here, and frankly, Priebus is monopolizing a little bit on that, is the sort of equalizing of real journalism with opinion. So, look, Farhad is right. Facebook should remain a technology company, but that does not mean that they don't have terms of service. That does not mean that they should essentially promote the equalization of legitimate, factual, objective, unbiased news reporting and someone's opinion. And I think with the Trump administration going down this road and saying, look, there's a story that we don't like, we're going to label it fake news and say it's libelous reporting, and we're going to sue them, is especially the New York Times, is just frankly crazy. I mean, it's not the right message they should be sending. Instead, they should probably focus on transparency.
Well, the two of you have certainly resulted in those who've been participating in our poll so far to be pretty split down the middle. Farhad Manjoo, Naveed Jamali, thank you so much. And by the way, this is the question we've been asking, agree or disagree. Is it possible to police fake news on social media? Look at the numbers here. Overall, we've got 50% disagreeing, 40, it's almost 50. I don't know when we've seen this last, right? Breaking it down by age for you. Maybe we get a little bit more difference there. All age groups are generally neutral as well.